Turkiye's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan just dropped a fiery speech that has the entire Muslim world talking. At an Islamic summit in Istanbul, Turkiye's president warned against what he called, quote, a new Sykes-Picot order being carved out in blood across the Middle East region. If you don't know what Sykes-Picot is, buckle up for a 30-second history lesson that connects back to everything happening right now to this day. Back in 1916, while World War I was still raging, Britain and France secretly carved up the Ottoman Empire like a birthday cake, right? Deciding, well, or a delicious pie. I could do some pie. Anyway, they were deciding who gets what when the Ottoman Empire collapses, as the Ottomans were losing that war. They literally drew fresh lines on a map, creating artificial borders that ignored ethical, religious, and tribal realities on the ground, because who cares, right? You know, these are colonial subjects to be. Same mindset as in Africa, same mindset in historic India, extraction economy to suck up wealth from another part of the world and dump it in, Europe, basically, or Western Europe. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, all the products of that European colonial power playing God with other people's land back in 1916. The results, over a century of conflict, instability, and war. And through it all, the extracted resources of the region smoothly flow west and continue to do so, to the rich and comfortable economies of the West. And who suffers? The natives of the land. I want you to think about how you would feel if a foreigner came and, with no regards for your community, your sensitivities, your culture, your religion, they just set up shop, took what they wanted, in some cases dumped what they didn't like, and left you in absolute chaos when they were done or they couldn't afford to stick around any longer. Now, Erdogan is saying the same thing is happening again. With Israel and Iran locked in direct warfare, with regional powers choosing sides, he's warning that outside forces are once again trying to redraw the Middle Eastern map. But here's what makes things different this time round. President Erdogan isn't just talking about preserving borders. He's positioning Turkey as the guardian of Middle Eastern sovereignty overall against what he sees as a new colonial project or an expanded colonial project attempt being made by the Israeli state. And he's rallying the Muslim world to diplomatically stand behind him or get behind him. He's making these speeches at the OIC, the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. It's a council basically where all the it's a Muslim countries club basically. By backing Iran's resilience and condemning the redrawing of boundaries through violence, which Israel would love to do if it had its way, have Iran collapse in on itself through a revolt, and then, in the ensuing chaos, maybe Israel can carve out some sort of sphere of influence for itself, where the Iranian, the Persian giant never rises again to be able to rival it, to be able to oppose Israel. And of course, Israel continues to redraw borders, redraw lines on the map: West Bank, Gaza, Golan Heights. Why are they in Syria? Why are they in Lebanon? Why are they in occupied Palestine? Ideally, they would have the Sinai from Egypt as well, but Egypt is currently under American sphere of influence, so there's no need really. It's like shooting an ally in the foot. Anyway, Turkey is essentially declaring itself the region's anti-colonial voice. This isn't just about current conflicts. Erdogan is making a play for regional stability and strongly throwing Turkey into the side that defends the current setup. Now, some people might say the current setup is based on Sykes-Picot, so what's going on? Is this Turkey basically reinforcing the West or the system in place, the system currently in place, put in place by the Western powers of old? No. You see, things need to stop before they can start reversing the way they came, right? Sykes-Picot and the fractured Middle East, born out of the Western world carving up the region, still exist today. Sykes-Picot's, initial sort of demarcation still exists today, right? That's why there's a super straight line, for example, that cuts up Iraq and Syria straight through the desert, because the British and French was just like, all right, just draw a line. It's all desert anyway, it's fine, calm. Right? But first you have to stop Israel from causing further chaos by invoking the ghost of Sykes-Picot, the agreement that still haunts the Middle East and their politics today. You have to stop further colonial redrawings, and once it's frozen and it looks like, okay, the foreigners don't really have any influence anymore to be able to redraw the map, then you start considering next steps. In Turkey's view, stop any further foreign or colonial change in the region, then look to remake the Ronald Reagan, then look to remake the region in favor of the natives and their needs, if possible, in the future when outside forces are diminished and no longer present. For example, the ethnicities that are broken up by Iraq and Syria and Turkiye and Iran and Lebanon, and obviously occupied Palestine and Jordan, all these, you could say made up. All nations are made up, but some nations are more made up than others. You could consider redrawing that map if the regional powers are not at each other's throats, and if there's not a foreign power or a foreign-backed colonial-style power in the region looking to destabilize things further. If things are like safe and secure, you can look to Turkey and Iran and Syria and Iraq, for example, working together in a way that prevents the Kurds that are fragmented between each of those four countries, finds a way that they can be better integrated into each country, or each country sort of comes together and allows for free movement or something. That's just one example, of course. There's a lot to do in the Middle East region, but the first thing you need to do is make sure things don't get worse. Then you look back at the situation as it has existed because of past injustices, and you look to change that. But you don't look to change something from the past while it's getting worse right now in the present, which is partly why people in Iran are absolutely scoffing or laughing in the face of the son of the former Shah of Iran, saying, rise up, we can make a better Iran. They're like, you're going to make a better Iran by supporting Israel. Yeah, how about no, you get lost, Israel stops doing all its madness, and we will within ourselves, the Iranians will within ourselves find a way to push our government in the direction we want. But that's a family affair. We don't need outsiders sort of coming into the family affair and messing with things. That's an internal matter for us. So that's I hope an interesting sort of explanation and understanding of where the Turkish president is coming from and the dynamics of the Middle East. There's nothing wrong with the West, by the way. As far as, well, there's loads of things wrong with every society, you could say, but there's nothing. I'm not blindly anti-West, but it is not pro-justice to support the foreigners from another place in your place. That's not pro-justice. You need to let the people native to the land decide for themselves, decide amongst each other, not dictate to them. This is a very Western ailment. For example, telling the Palestinians who can and cannot rule the Palestinians once they have a state. Like, this group cannot rule, this group cannot be in government, no way. Who are you? Leave it to the Palestinians. Same situation in Iran. Well, we're not comfortable with your enriching beyond 4%. Well, who asked you what you're comfortable with? Why do you get to decide? What if I'm not comfortable with you, even existing in this part of the world? You see how, why is it only one side that dictates to the other side? Which is the reason why no foreigners should dictate what happens in a foreign land. That's of course my personal opinion. We've slipped into me talking about actually my personal preferences. You see, right at the start of my channel opening up, on my page, I admitted, I said, I actually am biased. I have two biases. I'm pro-justice and anti-stupid, and I don't think I can get away from those. But beyond that, in terms of focusing on a specific nation state or a specific region, I can be very analytically unbiased in my own opinion, of course. So I guess that's... But anyway, for the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Mahfouz, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And thank you for your continued support, especially those who keep saying that you come here for your news. I'll keep trying to bring you that news, summarized, accurate, fact-based, and not biased, so that you don't have to suffer with Western legacy media. See you on the next one.